Hi, welcome to the third development log for Discount Dan's Everything Must Die, a co-op deck builder fan game for the Discount Dan books. First off, I saw there's going to be a Kickstarter for the Discount Dan hardcover books, so that's going to be pretty awesome. But if you didn't know about that and you somehow ended up here, I don't know what you're doing. Congrats to James, I suppose. Um, I'm going to be getting into some gameplay right away here, so I'm going to load a game. I've stacked my deck completely again this time. I wanted to show off, so it's hard to show off a lot of the changes I've made. I've basically completely refactored, rewritten the entire back end. This one is a big change, but it's not necessarily things you're going to see. One thing you will see, though, is lots of changes to UI and animation, or at least, you'll see the effects of it. So, I've got a stacked deck again, so this card, if I've played a psionic card before, which I marked these as psionic, it'll let me draw two. This card, again, in past, will let me draw three, but you'll see big changes here. So this dialogue box, previously this was hard-coded specifically for this card. I've spent ages rewriting it. It's now a couple of hundred lines. It was, well, maybe 100. It used to just be like 20, but it was like really hard-coded. Now it's able to handle all kinds of conditions, drawing from various decks and such, which I use in other cards. It'll make programming new cards in future much faster. So you can see, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, put any that cost 2 or less into your hand, put the rest back in any order. So you can see I've got 1 that costs 2 or less, and then 2 that cost more than that, and you'll see them smoothly animate. So these 2 will go into the back into the reserve deck, and this one will go into the hand. And that all smoothly animates. And you can see, as I'm drawing more cards, this is getting more squished, so we don't have to worry about cards running off the screen. I also don't have to worry about overdrawing anymore, because the way cards are drawn has been rewritten. There's no fear of overdrawing and crashing the game. That's just not an issue anymore. It just won't draw more cards when it can't. So I was going to show off this card. So this is quality pile of relic shards. If I play 2 of these, what it's going to do is it's going to draw a card from the store deck into here, and then directly into my hand. And I also have another version of that card in here. These are the regular relic shards, which are much cheaper. So if I play 2 of these, I'll draw a card from the store. Oh, same card. That's just coincidental. And this is going to draw into my discard pile instead. So you won't be able to use it on the same turn, but it's a much cheaper alternative. Though you could combine it with some drawing cards to get around that. You can see now here this UI, I've got 4 across, and it's much more compressed. That's so if we play lots of cards, it'll compress better. I'll show off fighting. So this is one of the few new cards I added. This is Barry the Sentient Bowl. He spits vitriol and also acid. So if you destroy this card, it says it's got 1 attack. Attack 2. I've accidentally flipped those values on the card graphic, the 1 and the 2 for health. Oh no, they should both be 2. Anyway, I've got the card graphic a little bit wrong there. So if I destroy this, I should get 2 wounds. So he goes into my victory pile, and I get 2 wounds. So wounds are fully implemented now. Still working on that blight infestation, and you can see he drew 2 new cards out of the Dweller's deck, just like he does in the book, except instead of creating more Barrys, because that would just create an infinite loop, and you would fuck your game. Trust me, don't want to do that. So that's some of the things I've been working on in that regard. I quickly want to look at a multiplayer game now. Also, again, I've worked a lot on this UI, not just for layout, but also for scalability with different resolutions. So now 720, 1080, and 1440, they're all done. You can play in any of those resolutions, and there will be no weird UI scaling bugs like there has been previously. Lots of work went into that. So I'm going to quickly bring up the debug menu, and I'm going to turn on slow motion, and then I'm going to switch to another player. And you're going to see, oh yeah, I've got tooltips down here too, but I'm loving the tooltips and animations I've programmed in this new version. Previously, this player 2 would go here, player 1 will go up there, but they would kind of snap into place after they moved across the screen. Now they smoothly animate, and on top of that, if you take a special look at the reserve, discard, and victory, and this is why I put it in slow motion, you'll see they kind of rotate around. It's a very cool effect. It's not baked, it's actually coded into the code dynamically, so I could change the UI layout and it'll just figure all this out on the fly. A very smooth effect though, I love it. Whoop. There we go. Oh, isn't that beautiful? As I said though, lots of back-end work this time. Biggest reason for that is it's going to be so much easier to add cards. Scripts are a lot more dynamic, they handle a lot more situations. You can see now in multiplayer with 4 players, oh, I've still got it in slow motion, but the cards then stack this way, and because these cards compress, there'll be plenty of space for cards played as well. So we no longer have to worry about cards going off the screen or UI elements overlapping. Speaking of overlapping, I've worked a lot on depth of cards, so which one goes in front of which. That's all handled much better now. It used to be a complete spaghetti mess. Now there's actually some priority to it. Up here, I've moved these decks across a bit, so I have space for this Inspect Deck button. I don't have a New Zealand accent, I have an Australian accent, so that's Inspect Deck. Distinctly not the other thing. So if you press this in future, it's not programmed yet, it's going to bring up a UI, kind of like this Quick Rules UI, but instead of that, it's just going to have a list of all of your cards. You'll be able to hover over them, see them. There's going to be no animations for that because I don't want you to know where those cards come from, because then you could cheat a little bit knowing what's in your reserve, discard, hand, etc. But just so when you buy a card you get later in the game, you have lots of cards in your deck, you'll know what you have access to. I think one more thing I should have shown off. I'll go back to that single player game I cheated on before. I will give myself some wounds on purpose. So like I'll defeat this guy with no, you see I got a lot of wounds for that because I didn't have any kind of defense up. Then we're going to go to the next turn. And you can see now I've got a couple of Zima cards. Half bottle of Zima now. So I decided to make it so you start with a single half bottle of Zima, which just heals a single point of health. And then I'm going to make full bottle of Zimas, which restore a bit more. So if I play this, it will find any wounds I have in my deck, and it'll heal them. And it'll bring them dynamically with animations up from anywhere they are in my deck. So another thing I want to show with that quickly is if I can get myself into a situation where I have both, oh my gosh, lots of Blight Infestations on top of that Dweller's deck, where I have both a Zima and a wound in my hand at the same time. Yes, there we go. So what I'll do is I'll play like this basic dodge card. Ooh, actually, I'll show you Mole Ninja Strike. All these effects have been programmed in now. So if I play this as my first card, I get 6 attack because it tripled the damage. But if I was to have played the dodge first and then Mole Ninja Strike, I only got 2 attack from it. So those card effects are working now too. So if I play a couple of these, and then I play my wound, for example, and you may go, why would you play a wound? Well, you wouldn't, but just let's say you did for the sake of it. I spent a lot of time programming all these animations and dynamic effects. So now if I play this half bottle of Zima, you can see it's going to go up here, but this wound is also dynamically going to slot out of here. And maybe we'll play this card too, just for good measure. And then it's going to rearrange the cards in the cards played section to smoothly animate. So let's do that. Oh, don't you love that? That flies over there, that goes down there. Beautiful. If I do say so myself. Anyway, let's get a little bit into a quick little PowerPoint I prepared earlier so we can go over some more back-end stuff. I might even get into the code today, just depends how much time I have, because there are a lot of changes there. Alright, so let's go through this PowerPoint quickly. So refactoring, it's done. Look, it should have been faster, but I kept having more ideas as I went on. It's one of those things, you fix one massive thing, another thing comes up. But I'm so happy I did it, because so many bugs have been solved, both past, present, potential future bugs, all solved. Code base is now a lot easier to work with, so increases to both perception and athleticism. What I mean by that is it's much faster to create new card effects now, modify existing card effects. They're much more dynamic now. They can handle much more situations. I don't have to debug them for as long because I've already done all that hard work in advance. There's much fewer points to sync now, which means network multiplayer is more feasible. That's not going to happen in the first version, I guarantee that. It'll only have the local multiplayer, so you'll have to crowd around a computer with a friend or pass your laptop around or something. But in future, if I do make network multiplayer, that possibility is there. This is one of the biggest things that slowed me down a lot. So structs, but then actually DS grids. You can read the rest of that if you want. Essentially, I had this idea. For a lot of card effects, what I was doing is I was creating this blank object, kind of like a payload object. And I was loading it up with variables and then reading those variables and then destroying the object, which if you've got a while loop checking through every card in a certain deck and you've got 100 cards in that deck, that is insanely slow in a single frame and creating 100 objects then destroying them. And I had this thought. I've never really used structs before, but they're like lightweight objects that just handle variables. I thought, structs, that's perfect. That'll solve that issue. It'll be much cleaner. And I went to do that, and then I realized GameMaker 1.4 doesn't support structs. The newer versions do, but I still don't want to use the newer versions because I don't like the UI layout. Sorry, Yo-Yo Games. Anyway, so then I had another thought, which is DS grids, which are essentially like what would you call that? Like a Excel spreadsheet, except all in code. You can't see any of it. I'm sure there is a way for someone who's determined enough. But anyway, so now all my cards virtually have like this massive spreadsheet where they store all their data. So I can just reference a card ID and then reference all the data, the attack, the attribute, etc., all in there without actually having to ever create an object or a struct or anything. Much, much, much faster. Hundreds of times faster, potentially thousands, maybe. I'm not sure. Not that there was any lag issues before, but it's good to be clean. It also just makes the code so much cleaner and defeats the possibility of memory leaks, of which when I was refactoring this code, I found many memory leaks, so this game would have eventually crashed if you played enough rounds. Performance is theoretically much better. Yeah. Again, never really a concern, but it's nice that I don't have to worry about performance. Don't worry about performance. Wounds are implemented, fully implemented. So dynamically, I can give an enemy an amount of wounds it'll take them. If you play defense, it'll avoid them. You can heal them with Zima, as you saw in the game. I can have Zima heal different amounts of wounds, and it'll dynamically grab it from the different decks and animate it all smoothly. Couldn't have done that so easily without all the refactoring work. This actually was a huge undertaking, mostly for the animation stuff. Really glad I did that refactoring work. Change of fonts. Lots of work with the fonts. The newer font is on a lot of levels, but let's just go with the most basic one. The newer card font, much more readable. I feel like it's slightly less authentic because the original font I had was like an NES font, which I feel like fit the books with the UI layout that Dan sees in my head. Not that I have a really visual sort of, I basically have aphantasia, if I'm being honest. In my head, it was more sort of an NES style font or an arcade style font. The newer font I've gone with is less so that, but it is so much easier to read, and I think that's worth it. I've also increased the vertical spacing, and I increased the way the cards move around, some dynamic stuff, so I could fit more information on there. I also shortened a lot of card descriptions just a bit more. They're already pretty short, which is a shame because I have to cut things out that I like that I wrote. But for the sake of gameplay, they don't need to be that long. Anyway, so and I kept the old font for the card graphics actually because I still liked it and I wanted to use it somewhere, and it fit pretty nicely on the actual cards. Lots of UI work. As I saw, slick player transition animations, a lot more animations with the cards moving around. I feel this is really important because it visually communicates to the player what is actually happening. That kind of goes down to this point here about more tooltips. I want someone to be able to pick up the game and figure out what's happening even if they haven't done a tutorial. I am leaning towards I want to do a tutorial, for the first version, but I may just simplify it. Like I may just have like a 4-page sort of document in the game that you can open up that just has like little circles around different parts. This does this, this does this. You can attack enemies here. This is their attribute. Blah blah blah. Something simple that won't take too incredibly long. But yeah, I want tooltips. I want animations. I want to communicate to the players what's happening. So yeah. The UI is much more space efficient now, as you saw. I had to change the board layout for that. I literally had to fight for every single pixel in this new board layout, but I'm happy. I got it where it needs to be. I managed to fit all the UI elements in there. Nothing overlaps at any of the resolutions. It's nice that it's all done. And again, so previously I used to calculate the position of things a lot, again and again and again in real time, each time they were called. So that led to a lot of code duplication. Now I just calculate the positions of everything at the start of the game, sometimes in setup, sometimes at the start of the actual match, depending what type of variable it is, global or local. And then cards can just call that variable instead of trying to calculate where they are. And I store a lot of those in arrays. It's much cleaner. It's actually much faster. Yeah, just much better system. Again, that comes back to the refactoring. Depth layering sorted. I talked about that before. There's no longer issues with cards clipping in front or behind, UI elements all over the place. Like they know where they're supposed to be and they dynamically be there. And yeah, card animations are much smoother now. I might just quickly show some of the code I've worked on, some of the stuff I'm a bit proud of. Some of the stuff that caused me to want to tear my own skin off. Like, again, I'm not a coder by trade. I'm actually a nurse by trade. So this is definitely a hobby thing. But, you know, I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So we'll get into that. All right, I didn't really know where to start with this. There's a hell of a lot more card scripts now. It's insane. I mean, just scripts in general. Sorry, I've got hundreds of scripts in the game now. But it's nice to see it all coming together because they're all sort of dynamic. I think I'll start off showing you actually a script that may not be used in the final game, but a variant of it will be. Let's go with this Spider-Man script that I wrote. So now, this is the script that I think this is a great explanation of some of the refactoring I've done. This is the script that'll draw those cards in for the Spider-Man script, and then it'll send them to decks dynamically. You can see down here now I use this. Oh, actually, I don't use it in this one. Sorry, never mind that. I can go through the decks now, and I can search how much they're worth here by accessing the card DB, which is and I've used an enumerator. I've never used an enumerator before. I should have. So this cost here is actually a number, but I can just type in code cost, and it'll know what I mean. If you haven't used enumerators before, you should. Anyway, so I go through this card database, which is again that DS grid, that data structure grid, and I can just search directly the cost here. Is it less than 2? And then I can determine whether that deck's going to go to the reserve, back to the reserve, or into the hand. You can see my fail condition, my success and my fail condition there. Just a lot more dynamic, a lot better. And another example of that, I feel, is the healing script I wrote, heal generic, I called it. So you can see I go through all these decks. I have to go through them one by one. But instead of creating these blank objects and then loading up all the data of the card, I just get to call... actually, in this one, I'm just searching directly for the card, so it doesn't even matter anyway. But point is, this code is still much cleaner because I am using this animation now, this new animation script. So I define my variables here, and then at the bottom here, for however many special count found, in this case is how many healing cards I found, I run this card animated create script and pass all the variables into that. And then if I go up here into this card animated create script, it's just this. It just creates a card animated object, gives it all its earlier defined stuff, and then runs it. But that saves me so much work, not having to copy and paste this code. solves so many errors, because if there's a bug in here, I can solve it here and it solves it for everything. Same with changes. If there's a change I need to make, I just change it there, solves everything. And I've got these, speed, little scripts that can calculate speed. But instead of doing them again and again and again, I just do them once. And same with the resolution default stuff. Instead of doing these calculations again and again and again, I work them out at the start of the game, like card positions in the villain deck and the store deck, and then they're there for the whole game, just stored in a variable. There's a lot that's changed here. So this card animate object, the one that I create with that animation script, it used to just have this massive switch statement in here for every possible. It was unmanageable. For every possible thing it could be animating from and to, it had like a different animation script in here. It was insane. Now it just cleanly figures out what it's doing. Is it scaling? Is it rotating? Is it moving? And then what's it going to become? Like, what type of card is it going to become at the end of it all? And then if it's not even going to become a card, it just destroys itself. It's so simple, so clean. This is the engine I wish I'd written originally years ago when I tried to make that Marvel game. Arguably, you could say that I should have started from scratch and written this engine now. But I tend to think of it like renovating a house. Not that, God, I can't afford a house in this economy. Who am I kidding? I'm renting. But like, let's say that 2 working nurses in Australia could afford a house, right? Because me and my partner are both nurses. Then, if you renovate a house, at a certain point, it's like, should you have just demolished the original house and built a new house? And I think in some ways that would be easier. But in some ways it would be harder, because you still have that structure and you can build around that structure. And even if you end up destroying every inch of it, it's very Ship of Theseus. You know what? I'm just going to leave it at that. It's very Ship of Theseus. I'm sure people who read lit RPGs have heard that term a million times before. That's my answer. It's Ship of Theseus. I think it's not the original engine anymore. There's no chance it's the original engine anymore. But I couldn't have made this engine without having had that original engine to work from. Anyway, thanks for listening to my ramblings. Again, go check out that Discount Dan Kickstarter. I'm pretty excited for it. I might get myself a nice... I don't have any of the physical copies. I read it on Kindle, and I have the audiobooks as well. I love both of those, but it'll be nice to have... it'd be nice to have a physical sort of thing to hold. Yeah, so go check it out, and keep, you know what, I need to say this because I always forget to say this. Like and subscribe here, leave comments here, because in future, if I do announce playtests and such, it's going to be in here, and I don't want to annoy James too much on his subreddit or his Discord, or wherever, because he's got his own things going on, I'm sure. Not to imply he's got things going on, but let's just say he does. So if you follow here, then I feel like when I get to that stage, I won't have to annoy him as much with it. As for where I'll have the playtest, I'm not sure yet. I'm obviously going to have to host the files somewhere. I don't want to just like host a random file in Mediafire and link to it at the bottom of a YouTube video or something, but I also feel a bit weird about uploading it to like something public like itch.io. Maybe I could create a Discord, or maybe if James is open to it, I could have a little section or thread or something on his Discord to talk about this stuff. That'd also be good, because I could upload little short videos, just like 10-second videos of new things I've worked on, like new cards or whatever. You can tell that none of this is scripted, can't you? Anyway, sayonara. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe.